Learn about an upcoming example of democracy that's in its 128th year, and meet one of its coordinators. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Myrtle Beach Herald. We're focused on the 2004 Gallivan's Ferry Stump, which will be held May 10th, and we're visiting with Sally Howard, the coordinator for the event. Good morning, Sally.
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for having me here.
Or one of the coordinators. There's a lot of folks involved.
We have a committee.
Yeah.
And in fact, really there are about 4 women, and we like to say that the 4 women of us are putting on the stump what John Monroe used to do by himself year-round for 2 years. Believe me, we had to come in and get it together.
It's a biennial event.
It is. It is. Every 2 years.
It's been going on now since I think I saw 1876.
1876 is when General Wade Hampton came through Gallivan's Ferry, and yes, he stopped there on horseback and spoke to a gathering. And we call that the first Gallivan's Ferry Stump.
It's incredible to think about that length of time, and to see those every 2 years going nonstop.
It is the longest running political rally, political event. Of course, we call it a stump speaking, which is the old terminology.
Right.
When you read about the old events when they used to go out, cut down a tree, and they had no stages and podiums, and they stood on the stump. And with that, 2 years ago, we had a podium carved from a stump.
Really?
And our speakers actually speak from a stump.
You're kidding.
No.
I don't think I noticed that a couple years ago when I was
you'll have
there.
to look for that.
Yeah, absolutely. May 10th's getting pretty close.
It is.
Like
We're counting down.
Less than 2 weeks away now.
Yes, yes.
What's the excitement right now for y'all, Sally? There's so much going on. Of course, the 4 of y'all, as well as so many others that are interested in making it a big event.
Right. Well, of course, we're lining up our speakers. We have 12 local candidates, local Democratic candidates that are running for office. All will be given an opportunity to speak. We will have Congressman Clyburn, Congressman Spratt, and of course we are honoring Senator Hollings. And that is so unique. Senator Hollings started his first statewide race in 1954 for lieutenant governor. Now, this being 2004, that is 50 years of stumping with Fritz at the Gallivan's Ferry Stump.
Wow. That is very exciting. I know he's thrilled to be back. He hadn't missed one since 54.
No, he's always there.
Yeah. It's so exciting to think of the commitment of folks across the board to come in from all over the state to see folks. And I guess the Gallivan's Ferry Stump was oftentimes the first of the many events in Horry County. It would end up in Conway, I think I saw at the courthouse, but would begin at the Gallivan's Ferry Stump.
That's true. And it was always scheduled, and still is, prior to a Democratic primary. And of course, back in the old days, a Democratic primary pretty much settled all the races. And that was where all the competition and all was, with the candidates that filed and ran within the primary, because not many Republicans were running way back when.
Right. Of course, parties have changed so much.
Times have changed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was so exciting. John Jenrette was with us a couple weeks ago, and he brought with him a copy of the Capital, I can't remember the congressional quarterly publication or congressional publication that had 6 African-American gentlemen on there from the 1800s, 3 of which were from South Carolina, all 3 of which were Republicans who were congressmen at that time. And to think about how party politics have changed so dramatically.
They do. Politics and partisan politics changes. And we can see how things are right now. They may be a little different in a few years.
That's exactly right. Sally, let's talk about yourself. Are you originally from the area?
Well, not really. I've been here permanently about 20 years, but I'm a Carolina girl. I'm from North Carolina, and my family, and then, of course, when I was grown married, always had a second home in Myrtle Beach. So Myrtle Beach and this area has always been, as I said, second home, and then now my permanent home for the last 20 years.
Yeah, what got you to leave the Tar Heel State and move to the Palmetto State permanently? You still call yourself, of course, a Carolina girl. That means you can be from either state. But,
that's so true. Well, I can spin this a couple of ways. In 1984, was coming out of the Jim Hunt administration, having worked for Jim Hunt's first 2 terms as governor, and was very involved with his race against against Jesse Helms.
Right.
And for that Senate race, he was unsuccessful. He lost in '84. I was divorcing. My youngest child was going to college, and I said, I think it's time to make a change. And one way I put it sometimes is I stayed at the beach that summer. I didn't go back.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But no, I love Myrtle Beach, and it certainly was the comfortable place to start over.
And it is that for a heck of a lot of folks, Sally. A lot of Tar Heels will move on down. It's amazing just to think about. And I'm from Durham, and of course our directors from Guilford County, and a heck of a lot of folks have made the commitment to leave the Tar Heels.
Oh, Myrtle Beach is full of North Carolinians. If we, from time to time, say if it wasn't for North Carolina, you'd think, that there wouldn't be anybody here.
That's right. That's right. That's hilarious. Well, now talk about politics in North Carolina. When you were involved in the 2 Hunt administrations, that would be the late 70s and early 80s?
76,
right,
yeah.
To 84? Okay. And of course, so many folks talk about Senator Helms ran and won his first one in 72, I think, against
right.
Nick Galifianakis, a big election back then, and was successful, I guess, for 30 years hence. But he ran always very tight margins in those victories, within a couple of points every single time.
He did, and some of those early races, it almost got to be a joke that after he would win, there would be people who would not admit or own up to voting for Jesse Helms, and everyone would laugh and say no one could understand how he continued to win because no one admitted voting for him.
Right.
But later on, he became more and more popular. But his early races were real squeakers.
Well, 72 was tight, 78 was tight, 84, 90 against Gant was narrow, thin,
Yes.
and then I guess 96, I don't remember who he defeated to get in.
Yeah, he's had some interesting races.
Did Governor Hunt ever talk about his relationship with Senator Helms? I mean, did they have an amicable relationship after the election?
That was a very bitter campaign in '84, and it was the first one that really big money, big dollars were spent, and it got national coverage and looked at for that race just because of the extreme amount. I don't even remember the figures right now, but in what was the '84? That was a big number.
Tens of millions of dollars. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Today it's even much, much more, but that was the first race that got that kind of national attention.
What was it like working for the Hunt administration in the late 70s and just being in a gubernatorial cabinet there and involved?
It was great. Jim Hunt was a master. He was a statesman. He, of course, was so committed to the state of North Carolina, and he was progressive. He was, of course, the area I worked in was women's issues, and he supported that, and he supported it by pushing through legislation that funded women's offices around the state. And we were looking at all of those efforts and issues that women still today need help with, from domestic violence to rape crisis to jobs for displaced homemakers, the women re-entering the job market. And it was really inspiring to be involved in that with that kind of support.
And he and Terry Sanford oftentimes, I guess, would get together and work on things.
Oh, yes. Yes. Terry Sanford, former governor and senator as well.
Amazing to see the commitment of folks, and in South Carolina, the similar commitment of folks like Senator Hollings and Strom Thurmond, and now some of the new blood that's taken over. How about that as the party, the Democratic Party, the difference between North and South Carolina? Are there a lot of differences between the two states, or is it pretty common interest there?
There are some differences. I felt when I moved here right after that '84 election that that South Carolina was not up to speed with what I had just come out of in North Carolina. And that was with commitment to, of course, I'm zeroing in again on women's issues, and that we were a little more behind the times. And I think when we look at in comparisons on things that, that South Carolina takes its time, looks at it, and does things when it's ready.
Absolutely. We had a guest in yesterday, Red Jackson, who's the co-chair of a May 15 march on Columbia for equity education funding, equity funding and education. So amazing to hear him talk about all the activities going on this huge march. But education's an issue that has been on the forefront in North Carolina and needs to continue to be on the forefront in South Carolina.
Absolutely.
Sally, and the Calvin's Ferry Stump, to have seen the expansion there, of course, that's the big focus. And May 10th, as you talked about, you said how many local candidates from Horry County alone?
We have 12 Democratic candidates from school board, county council, state house, and state senate.
Why should a viewer go to the Stump?
Well, just for that reason, to meet those candidates and decide who they're going to vote for. And that is the ultimate, what you want to call retail politics. So many of the candidates emphasize wholesale politics and buy those TV ads, which I know you're thrilled for, and the newspaper ads, and where they can reach lots of people. But go back to that old-timey handshake and looking you in the eye and ask that candidate how they feel about something and let them tell you personally.
I don't know if you got to see Tommy Britton, who aired last Thursday, but it was so exciting hearing him talk about the theater aspect there. I mean, and of course the comparison between going to a movie and actually going to a live theater performance in the same way. I guess the Stump speakers and all the folks there, and as he pointed out, a heck of a lot of Republicans are in the crowd.
Oh, they will be. They'll be all around, and we're glad for them to come and listen to candidates and mingle with us. Again, it's a festival atmosphere. In fact, I'd like to add a couple of things that we started 2 years ago that we're doing again. We have an old mule and wagon where people can ride the wagon around the area. We've got a little petting zoo of baby donkeys. And that's been a really cute thing 2 years ago for the children to take pictures with the donkeys and all. In fact, I kind of like that myself. And, of course, we have the chicken bog. So famous old chicken bog. You can eat while you're out there. There's the bluegrass music. And you never know what a candidate might show up with something for fun. We've had skydivers. We've had, I hear the story of years and years ago, a candidate rode in on horse, at a
White horse.
yes. But we never know what a candidate might do. They like to do something to get additional attention. And, of course, Inez Tenenbaum, who's running for Fritz's seat that he's, of course, retiring from, Inez will be there, and we will be featuring her. And we'll get a box for her to stand on.
Right up on the Stump. Yeah. That's right. Maybe we can get her on the Stump. To see the changes, and, of course, part of, as I was reading a little bit of the history of the Stump, part of the, as you talked about, a little bit of the shift happened when broadcast mediums, whether radio or television, became became to have so much more of an impact on communities that a lot of folks bypassed Stump settings because of the ability to reach so many more voters, potential voters, in a broadcast, either TV or radio medium. But you point out the theater and the importance of seeing that candidate eye to eye, to be able to ask them questions directly. How much does that happen there? Is it really happening? Are the candidates accessible? I mean, do the attendees feel that they're really able to communicate with you?
Absolutely. In fact, we limit their time at the podium. I mean, some candidates might have 3 minutes, some might have 5. A national figure might have 10 minutes, but it's not going to be a long-standing, boring listening to a speech. Those candidates, what they want to do is mix and mingle. They will be accessible, and they will be all through the crowd to speak with the people there.
Right. Russell talked about 4:30. Folks need to arrive. A lot going on before events actually kick off. Is it 6 or 6:30?
4:30, of course, is music, and of course the mule rides and all that we'll have. 6 o'clock was the actual speaking starts.
Okay. Now, Sally, talk real quick about how you got in on that inner committee there of 4. I know Tommy talked a little bit about having taken, I guess, Bill Davis's place, a non-holiday family member getting in the inner circle. But how did you get in on that?
Well, I'm sure people that have followed the Stump over the years, the last number of years and few decades, John Monroe Holiday has been the lead person and has spent 2 years from one Stump to the next, planning and scheduling, writing letters. He would write letters just year-round to people. Well, John Monroe passed away in 2000, And so the 2002 stump was the first stump to be put on, as what I like to call it, by the cousins. John Monroe's two daughters, Russell and Christy, and then Joseph, his brother, who had died much earlier. Joseph's children are Billie Holiday, Betty Tull Holiday McLeod, and Judson Holiday. So the 5 cousins were charged with putting on the stump, and they were, of course, had big shoes to fill. So Russell pretty much represents the John Monroe side, and Billy came to me and said, will you represent us and go to the meetings and do the planning, keep us informed, and help put this on. So 2 years ago, that's what we did. Now, Billy's sister Betty and Russell are co-chairs. They are official co-chairs of the stump.
Okay.
Russell's sister Christy handles our PR and schedules appointments like this and gets our information out. So pretty much Russell and Christy and Betty and I is what we call the committee.
Have the 5th generation of the Holidays gotten active at all? Or
Yes, they have children, and they're always there, and they're watching, and it's going to be theirs one day.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. Something that's been going on 128 years. It's got another 128 years to go at least.
Nothing seen to stop it now. It'll keep going.
Sally, I think I saw on a little bit of the write-up about you that you had been a year 2000 presidential elector. Can you share with the viewers exactly what that is or was?
Yes. Every state elects their electors, and of course that electoral college is what you hear so much about, that, and it's one of the reasons they say South Carolina's not all that important, because we have a small number. Your electors are based on your number of federal elected officials.
Okay.
So we have 6 congressmen and 2 senators. And each party elects the electors. So there would be the Republican and then the Democrat. And if your state goes Democrat or Republican, those electors actually go to their state capital and cast those votes. So, you know, presidential races are not one vote, one person. South Carolina goes Republican. The Republican electors went to Columbia, and so I didn't get to vote, but I was listed on all the national register of electors. That it was quite an honor, and I'm pleased to have been an elector. I would have been a little more pleased had I been able to go and vote for Al Gore. But that's how it works.
So the actual counts are made on the general election side? I mean, the counts are made before the elector is actually able to cast that vote? Or when you said
yes.
It went Republican, and that's why, is it the day of they make that decision?
No, you do not cast those votes till like the first Monday or Tuesday in December.
Okay.
You have your general election in November.
Right.
And then you see, and of course it got held out longer because of the Florida fiasco, deciding, you know, who won Florida. So I think California has 54 electoral votes, and Florida has a lot. So that's where those states become so important. And they always go to what they call delegate-rich states to campaign.
So there are the 535 electoral votes, much like the 435 congressmen and 100 senators.
Represents each congressional seat or Senate seat. Exactly.
But because of those 2 senators in every state, even if a state like North or South Dakota may only have 1 congressman, they're still able to have at least the 3.
3, yeah. Rhode Island, I think, is like that as well.
Still able to have those 3 because of the U.S. senators. How vital.
It is. It's an interesting.
That's been exciting, Sally.
It is, and of course, every few years you get the argument about doing away with it. And there's a lot of controversy and a lot of debate on, because again, we look back now at that popular vote in 2000, and if popular vote had been the way to elect a president, obviously, Al Gore would have won. And the fact, though, that the Electoral College is still in place and has been forever, it went the other way.
Golly, that's fascinating
Isn't that
to
interesting?
think about, Sally. Yeah, I guess I'd forgotten
That
the
a
impact.
candidate can win the popular vote but lose the electoral vote.
That's amazing to think of that impact as we're encouraging young folks and folks of all ages to get active in the political process, to register to vote. We see the influx of groups like Kids Voting, which are really encouraging
that's
folks
wonderful.
to get active in voting, events like the Gallivan's Ferry Stump to try to get folks active, and to see something like that seems really strange.
and to get them to register, and then once you are registered, go vote. These numbers that are coming out over these last elections are embarrassing. I mean, communities and parties and candidates all should just be embarrassed over the lack of voters out there.
Mm-hmm. Having such an important role helping to represent women either in the Hunt administration or helping Governor Hodges or other folks as a communicator in communities, did you ever contemplate running for office yourself, Sally?
No, I'm asked that a lot, but I think when I'm going in a fourth decade now of campaigning behind the scenes and working either with issues or working with candidates, and that's just a niche that I love and enjoy and have no desire to hold public office myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's so you know, John Jenrette, when he was with us a couple of weeks ago, we talked a little bit about running for office. One of the things that he pointed out is, albeit it has a tough impact on families oftentimes, whether the male or female, the husband or wife, is making a decision to run for office, it is folks that have to make that commitment, otherwise governments couldn't run.
Oh, there's a lot of commitment to a candidate running. When the candidate, of course, has got to sacrifice a lot, their family, just as you said, and then they've got to have people around them that are willing to be committed to seeing them through it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is it about a candidate that has gotten you involved in the past, Sally? I mean, you know, them really able to communicate for multiple numbers of citizens. I mean, what is it about the political process that gets you so excited?
Well, I think you can look at a candidate or talk to the candidate and can tell what their level of commitment is to that job. Mm-hmm. And that's what gets me excited. When I know there's a candidate that wants to make a difference and get in there and sacrifice to do that, I'm willing to sign on and be a part of that. But unfortunately, there are candidates that don't take the campaigning as serious as they maybe should. And there are people that would be a good campaigner and maybe not a good public officer. But then there are others that might not be a good campaigner but be a great public servant. So you've got to get that match that they unfortunately, they got to do both.
Mm-hmm. Sally, I was reading a little about you, and I saw that for almost 2 decades you had a fashion jewelry design business. Well, and I know you're wearing one of the pieces now, and I'm sorry we can't quite zoom in on it, but it's a beautiful piece. What prompted you to stop marketing the jewelry on a regular basis and get more into the political?
Well, I think my politics always was along the sidelines of it, but I did have a costume fashion jewelry business that I started as a summertime hobby, making some one-of-a-kind pieces, and went from that to going to New York and finding some, and actually Rhode Island is where the actual industry manufacturers are, finding some rhinestone houses that would make some of my designs. And then unfortunately, like any industry, it moved more into importing. Mm-hmm. And the market for what the importers, you know, could produce. So I then had a wholesale line that I just sold to ladies' boutiques for a good many years, and have just basically retired from that about 2 years ago.
I think I saw you're also a board member of the National Shag Dance Championships and have maintained an activity with the Myrtle Beach Community Appearance Board. I mean, you're staying very involved in the community, Sally.
Oh, I feel like people should do that, and that's what makes a community great, is people that will, in fact, participate as volunteers and work to see that your community is a better place to be.
Mm-hmm. Very definitely. As you now travel the state or have maintained that ability to get around the state and communicate in different groups, when you talk to folks about the Gallivan's Ferry Stump as one of the 4 coordinators for this year's event, what is it about the stump here in the Horry County area that has encouraged other groups in other areas to either keep theirs going or let it pass away?
Well, what I like to say to people, of course, is the Gallivan's Ferry Stump is a big deal. When you look, of course, to the history of it, it's just outstanding. But the actual event with the crowds and the fun and the just atmosphere, you look around, people will come on buses from Greenville. They will come from Columbia. We've had CNN covering us. We've been on national network. TV has covered us. We expect a national representative from the Kerry campaign. They intend to send us someone. In honoring Senator Hollings, we expect a couple of his Senate colleagues, possibly Senator Joe Biden or Senator Tom Harkin that will come down. So we'll have some national figures.
It's going to be such a great day, and of course the excitement, as you said, it's open to both parties.
And it's free.
And it's free. That's exactly right. And of course, getting out there at 4:30 gives an opportunity for a viewer to get out on the donkey or taste some of the chicken bog. I guess our form of jambalaya. The excitement will really be thrilling that day.
And I'd just like to add to that, the fact that it is free, I personally just want to thank and let the public know to thank the two Holiday families, because their generosity and sponsorship of putting this on is what makes it able to happen.
Absolutely. Sally, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me. See you at the stump.
Yes, May 10th. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Sally Howard coming up next. We want to thank Sally Howard for working so hard, volunteering so much time to make this year's 2004 Gallivan's Ferry Stump such a big success. It's been called a slice of pure Americana, democracy in its most original form. It's just that. The holidays, and so many are working hard to bring it to you. Get out there, 4:30. Speakers kick off at 6, May 10th.